Most people spend decades planning the financial side of retirement: the pension, the savings, the ISA, the state pension forecast, the bridge strategy, the drawdown plan. And all of that planning is important, but there is a side of retirement that almost nobody plans for, and it is the side that research consistently shows matters more to how long you live and how well you live than almost any financial decision you will ever make. That side is what you actually do with your time once the working week is over. The research on this is striking and consistent. Retirees who engage in regular, purposeful hobbies live longer, maintain cognitive function later into their lives, have lower rates of depression and anxiety, and report dramatically higher levels of life satisfaction than those who do not. Today we are going to count down 8 of the best hobbies for people over 60, not based on opinion, but based on what the evidence from health research, cognitive science, and longevity studies actually says. And we are going to be specific about why each one works, because understanding the mechanism is what makes the difference between picking up a hobby casually and building it into your life seriously enough to experience the real benefits. Let's start with something that almost everyone can do, that costs almost nothing, and that the research says is more powerful than most people realise. Hobby number 1 is walking, and specifically social walking. Walking on its own is one of the most extensively studied and most consistently beneficial forms of physical activity available to older adults. A randomised controlled trial published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that older adults who walked regularly experienced increased hippocampal volume, which is the region of the brain most associated with memory, compared with sedentary peers. Increased hippocampal volume is directly associated with slower cognitive decline, better episodic memory, and reduced risk of dementia. Walking also increases cerebral blood flow, promotes the formation of new neurons in the brain through a process called neurogenesis, and releases endorphins and BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, sometimes called the fertilizer of the brain. But the research makes a distinction that matters. Walking alone is beneficial. Walking with others is measurably more beneficial still. The social dimension activates additional cognitive systems, reduces cortisol, and provides the sense of connection and belonging that is one of the most powerful protective factors against depression in older adults. In the UK, the Ramblers Association has local walking groups in virtually every town and county, many of which run specifically for over 60s. The cost of membership is minimal, the physical barrier to entry is low, and the health benefits, both physical and cognitive, are immediate and cumulative. The recommendation from most exercise physiology research is a minimum of 150 minutes of moderate intensity walking per week, which works out to around 22 minutes per day, or 3 30-minute walks per week, for meaningful health benefits. That is not an intimidating commitment, and the social walking format makes it dramatically more likely to become a consistent habit than solo exercise. Hobby number 2 is gardening, and it belongs on this list for a set of reasons that extend well beyond the obvious. Gardening is a genuinely comprehensive physical activity that engages strength, flexibility, balance, and cardiovascular fitness simultaneously, but at an intensity level that is accessible to almost anyone regardless of prior fitness. Digging, planting, pruning, carrying, and bending collectively provide a full-body workout without the impact stress of running or the equipment requirements of gym-based exercise. But the physical dimension is only part of the story. Gardening is one of the most extensively documented nature-based interventions for mental health in older adults. A landmark study from the University of Exeter found that spending time in or near natural environments was associated with significantly lower rates of depression and anxiety, and that gardening in particular produced sustained reductions in cortisol levels, the primary stress hormone, that outlasted the gardening session itself. There is also what researchers call the purposefulness effect. Tending to a living thing that requires your attention and care on a regular basis provides the kind of routine, responsibility, and tangible reward that work used to provide, and that retirement can sometimes remove. Seeing something you planted grow is not a trivial psychological experience. It is a genuine source of what positive psychologists call eudaimonic well-being, the sense that you are doing something meaningful. Growing your own vegetables adds a nutritional dimension on top of that, and community allotments add a powerful social layer that transforms gardening from a solitary activity into a community one. In the UK, allotment waiting lists in many areas have shortened in recent years, and many councils actively prioritise over 60s for available plots. Hobby number 3 is learning a musical instrument. This is one that many people dismiss too quickly because they assume it is too late to start, and the research says unambiguously that they are wrong. The brain's capacity for learning new skills, including musical skills, persists well into later life. What changes with age is not the capacity to learn, but the speed of early acquisition. And for a hobby rather than a professional goal, speed of acquisition is irrelevant. What matters is consistent engagement with a challenging, structured, multi-sensory learning task, and learning a musical instrument delivers exactly that. Studies on musical training in older adults consistently show improvements in processing speed, working memory, and executive function, which are precisely the cognitive domains most vulnerable to age-related decline. Playing an instrument requires the simultaneous engagement of auditory processing, fine motor control, memory, attention, and emotional expression. It is one of the most cognitively demanding things a human brain can do, and that demand is what produces the cognitive benefit. The guitar, the piano, the ukulele, and the keyboard are all accessible starting points for over 60s with no prior musical experience. Online learning platforms including Simply Piano, Justin Guitar, and the associated board of the Royal Schools of Music online resources provide structured tuition at any level for very modest cost. Local music groups, folk clubs, and community choirs provide the social dimension and the performance motivation that significantly increase long-term engagement. A 2014 study published in Neuropsychology found that adults who engaged in musical training for at least 6 months showed measurable improvements in memory and processing speed relative to a control group, and those improvements were independent of starting age. Hobby number 4 is swimming, and this is the one that earns its place on the list as the gold standard physical activity for anyone over 60 with any history of joint problems, arthritis, or back pain. Water removes approximately 90% of your body weight from your joints, allowing a full cardiovascular workout with zero impact stress. For someone whose knees or hips make walking painful, swimming or water-based exercise such as aqua aerobics provides an intensity of physical engagement that simply is not accessible through land-based exercise. The cardiovascular benefits of regular swimming are well documented and include reduced resting heart rate, lower blood pressure, improved lung capacity, and a significantly reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, which remains the leading cause of death in the UK. Swimming is also one of the most effective mood regulators available. The immersion in water activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing heart rate and producing a calm, focused state that many regular swimmers describe as meditative. Most UK leisure centres and public pools offer specific over 60 swimming sessions at reduced cost, and many offer structured water aerobics classes that combine the physical benefits of swimming with the social benefit of a group activity. The NHS recommends adults aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity per week, and for older adults with joint limitations, swimming is one of the most accessible ways to meet that target without aggravating existing conditions. Hobby number 5 is volunteering, and it belongs on this list not because it is a nice thing to do, which it is, but because the evidence for its health benefits is remarkably strong. Research published in the journal Psychological Bulletin found that regular volunteering is associated with a 20 to 25% reduction in all-cause mortality compared with non-volunteers of the same age and health status. That is a larger effect size than many pharmaceutical interventions. The mechanism is understood. Volunteering provides 3 things that retirement can sometimes remove simultaneously: purpose, routine, and social connection. Purpose means the sense that what you do matters and that people are depending on you. Routine means a structured weekly commitment that organises time and provides predictability. And social connection means regular, meaningful interaction with both colleagues and the people you are helping. These 3 factors are individually associated with better health outcomes in older adults, and volunteering delivers all 3 in a single activity. In the UK, the Do It platform lists volunteering opportunities by postcode across every conceivable type of organisation, from food banks and charity shops to mentoring programmes, environmental conservation, and community arts projects. The time commitment can be as small as 2 or 3 hours per week and can be scaled up as and when you choose. Volunteering is also the hobby on this list, most likely to provide genuine cognitive stimulation through problem solving and social navigation, without the formal learning structure that some people find intimidating. Hobby number 6 is a creative pursuit, and this category encompasses painting, drawing, ceramics, photography, writing, and any other activity that involves making something that did not exist before. The research on creative activity and healthy aging is consistent and spans multiple disciplines. Making art has been shown to reduce cortisol levels, improve mood, and activate the prefrontal cortex in ways that enhance executive function and emotional regulation. A 2017 study published in the journal Art Therapy found that just 45 minutes of creative activity significantly reduced cortisol in participants, regardless of their prior artistic experience or perceived skill level. The act of making something engages sustained attention in a way that is increasingly rare in an age of constant digital interruption, and that sustained focused attention, sometimes called deep work or flow, is associated with high levels of psychological well-being in research from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi and colleagues. Photography is particularly worth mentioning as a creative hobby for over 60s because it combines the creative dimension with a powerful reason to go outside, explore, travel, and engage with the world. A camera, whether a dedicated device or a modern smartphone, provides a lens through which every ordinary environment becomes interesting and every journey becomes purposeful. Local photography clubs exist in almost every UK town and provide the social and learning dimension that accelerates development and sustains motivation. Hobby number 7 is learning a language. This is the hobby on this list with the most dramatic and most specific evidence behind it. Research on bilingualism and multilingualism consistently shows that people who actively use more than one language throughout their lives develop dementia an average of 4 to 5 years later than monolinguals. That is not a small effect. It is the single largest protective factor for dementia onset that researchers have consistently found across populations and study designs, and its mechanism is understood. Using multiple languages builds what neuroscientists call cognitive reserve, which is the brain's ability to recruit alternative neural pathways when primary ones are damaged or degraded. The cognitive reserve built by regular language use acts as a buffer, meaning that the same level of neurological damage that would produce symptoms of dementia in a monolingual person may produce no symptoms in someone with significant cognitive reserve from language learning. You do not need to become fluent to benefit from this effect. Consistent, effortful engagement with a new language, even at a beginner or intermediate level, produces measurable changes in brain structure and function. Apps including Duolingo, Babbel, and Rosetta Stone provide structured daily learning at no or low cost. Local language exchange groups, conversation circles at libraries and community centres, and evening classes at further education colleges provide the social and spoken practice dimension that significantly accelerates progress and makes the habit sustainable. Hobby number 8 is dancing, and it closes this list because it is the one that combines the largest number of the active ingredients that research identifies as protective against cognitive decline and physical deterioration in a single, enjoyable activity. Dancing simultaneously engages cardiovascular fitness, muscular strength, balance, coordination, spatial awareness, memory, social interaction, and emotional expression. A landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2003 followed nearly 500 adults over the age of 75 and found that dancing was the only physical activity among those studied that was associated with a significantly reduced risk of dementia. The researchers concluded that the combination of physical movement, social engagement, and the constant cognitive demand of learning and remembering sequences and responding to a partner produced a uniquely powerful brain health effect that individual components did not replicate on their own. In the UK, Ballroom dancing, Scottish country dancing, folk dancing, and salsa are all widely available through evening classes, community clubs, and leisure centres. Many specifically cater to over 60s and beginners, and virtually none require a pre-existing partner. The physical intensity is adjustable. The learning curve is consistent enough to provide ongoing cognitive challenge, and the social dimension is built into the activity in a way that makes it one of the most natural routes to new friendships in retirement. So there is your list: walking with others, gardening, learning an instrument, swimming, volunteering, a creative pursuit, learning a language, and dancing. What all 8 have in common is not complexity or expense. Most of them cost very little. What they share is the combination of physical engagement, cognitive challenge, and social connection. And the research says that it is precisely that combination that is most associated with a longer, healthier, and more satisfying life after 60. The financial plan for retirement is about making sure you can afford to be alive. The hobby plan is about making sure that being alive is worth it. If you found this useful, please hit the like button and subscribe to UK Finance with Peter for more content on money, retirement, and living well in the UK. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.